Tonight, you might pour yourself a glass of wine or crack open a cold beer, and you won't think twice about it. It feels modern. It feels like a choice your culture invented somewhere along the way. But the real answer is far stranger. Your attraction to alcohol didn't start in a brewery. It started in a forest, millions of years before humans existed at all. Here's where it begins. Long before the first human walked upright, your ancestors were eating fruit. Overripe fruit. The kind that falls to the forest floor and starts to ferment in the heat. Wild yeast lands on that sugar and begins breaking it down, and one of the byproducts is ethanol. Alcohol. Not made by anyone. Made by nature itself. So why would eating rotting fruit matter? Because the smell of fermentation was a signal. It meant sugar. It meant calories. In a world where food was never guaranteed, a primate that could smell alcohol from a distance had an advantage. This idea has a name. Biologists call it the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis, proposed by biologist Robert Dudley. His research suggests your taste for alcohol isn't a flaw in human behavior. It's an inherited instinct, one that helped your ancestors find food before they ever brewed a single drop on purpose. But smelling it and drinking it on purpose are two very different things. So when did that shift happen? The oldest confirmed evidence comes from China. At a site called Jiahu, archaeologist Patrick McGovern and his team found pottery residue dating back roughly 9,000 years. Chemical analysis revealed traces of fermented rice, honey, and fruit. This wasn't an accident. Someone deliberately combined ingredients and let them sit. They were brewing. Around the same time, similar evidence appears elsewhere. In the Caucasus region, grape residue inside ancient jars suggests winemaking dates back at least 8,000 years. In the Middle East, traces of beer-like fermented grain show up in sites tied to some of the earliest farming communities on Earth, which raises an uncomfortable question. Did farming exist so people could eat? Or did farming exist, at least partly, so people could drink? This is where one of the most provocative theories in archaeology comes in. Some researchers argue that the desire to brew stable, storable alcohol may have pushed early humans toward farming grain in the first place. Bread is satisfying. But beer, in a world without distraction, without modern medicine, without easy comfort, may have been just as motivating. Clean water was often unsafe. Fermented drinks, by contrast, killed off many harmful pathogens in the process of brewing. For a lot of early communities, beer wasn't a vice. It was safer than the river. But alcohol wasn't only about safety. It became something else almost immediately. A social glue. Across nearly every ancient civilization that left written records, you find alcohol tied to ritual. The Egyptians brewed beer as an offering to their gods, and workers building the pyramids were partially paid in beer rations. The Sumerians had a goddess of beer named Ninkasi, and a surviving hymn to her doubles as one of the oldest known beer recipes in human history. Drinking wasn't separate from society. It was woven into religion, labor, and celebration, all at once. So why does this still matter to your brain today? Because alcohol does something very specific neurologically. It increases activity tied to dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, while simultaneously lowering activity in the regions responsible for social caution and self-monitoring. In small amounts, this is exactly why a drink can make a room of strangers suddenly feel like friends. Your ancient ancestors weren't choosing wine because it tasted sophisticated. They were responding to a chemical shortcut that made cooperation, bonding, and trust easier to access. Which means every toast you've ever raised carries an inheritance stretching back further than agriculture itself. Back past the first clay jar in Jiahu, back past the first vineyard in the Caucasus, all the way to a primate in a forest, sniffing the air, following the smell of sugar turning into something more. So tonight, when you pour that glass, you'll still feel what you've always felt. But now you'll know the truth underneath it. That drink in your hand isn't a modern invention at all. It's one of the oldest relationships you have, older than writing, older than cities, older than civilization itself.